Hey everybody, the Toril here, and welcome to Sword Coast Legends. This is... I'm trying to think of how I can explain this game. It's basically a cross between, well in my eyes, Dragon Age Origins and Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, no, and Neverwinter. Yeah, that'll work. Because the way the game works, in terms of rule set for combat and stuff, is Neverwinter, because it uses Dungeons and Dragons rules. And if you don't know what I mean by Dungeons and Dragons rules, it's like if you're doing something that requires, or that takes into account the enemy's stats, they might have to do like a saving throw in order to, you know, not get affected by a certain something. And it incorporates things like that into the mix, which is really cool. And I quite enjoy that. But from what I've played of the game, it's very good. The downside to it, as you may have been able to tell, is the fact it takes a while to load. Like, the loading screens for this game are terrible. Loading times. Yeah, they're pretty bad. Anyway, we are on to character creation already. And it says, in the world of Faerûn, men and women are equally capable of in all things. And then we have all our classes, but I'm obviously going to be a male because I'm a dude. And we have a wizard, a scholarly magic user capable of manipulating the structures of reality, and it lists their armor proficiency, weapon proficiency, and save proficiencies. So as I was talking about earlier, saving throws, that's what the save proficiencies mean. So they may have to have an intelligence or wisdom saving throw in order to, you know, avoid being hit by a certain something. Usually magic, if it's an intelligence or wisdom throw, I think. I don't really know. I don't know the Dungeons and Dragons rule set all that much. We have a paladin, a holy warrior bound to a sacred oath. That is probably the class I'll be going with. Mostly because I'm allowed to use simple and martial weapons. So that's quite nice. There's a warrior who uses martial prowess and nature magic to combat threats on the edges of civilization. That's a ranger. The warlock, an arcane caster with some knowledge of hand-to-hand combat, driven by a need for knowledge and power. You have a fighter, a master of martial combat, skilled with a variety of weapons and armor. Yeah, they can use everything, I think. Actually, hang on. They're the fighter and they can use simple and martial weapons, so I think that means they can use everything. It probably goes along with what your race is, in terms of what you can actually use. And we have a cleric, a priestly champion who wields divine magic in service of a higher power. They're quite cool, and I was playing as a tiefling cleric a while ago, and it was quite cool because their like standard attack was a fireball. You can attack with your weapon in hand, but I kept using fireball. It was great, though the enemy did have a lot of saving throws with that. But it's quite cool because the saving throw stuff, it's all done in the background, so you don't actually... It doesn't take long for the combat to go through, whereas in playing actual Dungeons and Dragons, combat takes a long time, because you have to do saving throws and all sorts of stuff. Although actual Dungeons and Dragons seems to be pretty cool. We have the Rogue, a scoundrel who uses stealth and trickery to overcome obstacles and enemies. And that is all, but I'm being the Paladin. And now we have dwarfs. Now we have races. We have the Dwarf. Bold and hardy, dwarves are known as skilled warriors, miners and workers of stone and metal. Though they stand well under 5 feet tall, dwarves are so broad and compact that they can weigh as much as a human standing nearly 2 feet taller. Their courage and endurance are also easily a match for any of the larger folk. And then we have sub-races for certain races. The dwarf have sub-races, the elves do, the humans do, and the halflings do. Is that what they're called? Halfling? I can't remember. The ones that don't have a subclass are the tieflings and the half-elves. I think they're the only ones. Anyway, there's the Gold Dwarf. As a Gold Dwarf, you have keen senses, deep intuition, and a remarkable resilience. And as you can see, the sub-race affects those. So, like, because they're sub-races, they don't have any, like, racial buffs. They get them from the sub-race. So, like, that racial bonus is Dwarven Toughness. And, like, being a Gold Dwarf, they're able to use a battle axe and a hand axe. Whereas with this one, they're able to use battle axes, hand axes, light and medium armors. It's quite cool. There's the Shield Dwarf. As a Shield Dwarf, you are strong and hardy, accustomed to a difficult life in rugged terrain. Right, now we have the Tiefling! These are what I was on about. These are like the demons. Right, to be greeted with stares and whispers, to suffer violence and insult on the street, to see mistrust and fear in every eye, this is the lot of the Tiefling. And to twist the knife, Tieflings know that this is because a pact struck generations ago infused the essence of Asmodeus, Overlord of the Nine Hells, into their bloodline. Oh dear. We have the human. With their penchant for migration and conquest, humans are more physically diverse than other common races. However, their ability scores, or what they get racially, is pretty bad. As a human adventurer, you are one of the most daring and ambitious members of a daring and ambitious race. You are adaptable and have a variety of strengths, able to take on any task that comes before you. The human variant. As a human adventurer, you are among the most adaptable and ambitious people among the common races. Humans have wildly diverse tastes, morals, and customs in the many different lands where they have settled. Oh, bonus 3 points to apply. That's quite cool. Maximum 2 in a score. And the racial bonus is 2 skill points. Oh yeah, they are halflings. The comforts of home are the goals of most halflings' lives. A place to settle in peace and quiet, far from marauding monsters and clashing armies. A blazing fire and a generous meal, fine drink and fine conversation. Though some halflings live out their days in remote agricultural communities, others form nomadic bands that travel constantly, lured by the open road and the wide horizon to discover the wonders of new lands and peoples. But even these wanderers love peace, food, hearth, and home, though home might be a wagon jostling along a dirt road or a raft floating down river. And then we have the sub-races. We have the Lightfoot Halfling. As a Lightfoot Halfling, you can easily hide from notice, even using people as cover. You are inclined to be affable and get along well with others. And then the racial bonus is they're naturally stealthy. And then we have the Strong Heart Halfling. As a Strong Heart Halfling, you are hardier than average and have some resistance to poison. Some say that the Strong Hearts have dwarven blood. Yeah, and they have a damage resistant to poison and a stout resilience. And I saved... Oh wait, no I didn't. There's this class first. I keep saying class when I mean race. The half-elves. Or half-elf. Walking in two worlds but truly belonging to neither, half-elves combine what some say are the best qualities of their elf and human parents. Human curiosity, inventiveness, and ambition tempered by the refined senses, love of nature, and artistic tastes of the elves. But no, these are the ones I was leaving till last because I am going to be an elf. Although which race, we will find out. Right, elves are a magical people of otherworldly grace, living in the world but not entirely part of it. They live in places of ethereal beauty, in the midst of ancient forests or in silvery spires glittering with fairy light, where soft music drifts through the air and gentle fragrances waft on the breeze. Elves love nature and magic, art and artistry, music and poetry, and the good things of the world. And now we have the Moon Elf. As a Moon Elf, you are generally more common and more friendly than your Sun Elf cousins, and are normally encountered among humans and other races. We have the Sun Elf. As a Sun Elf, you are known as being haughty and reclusive, believing yourself to be superior to non-elves and even other elves. The Wood Elf. As a Wood Elf, you have keen senses and intuition, and your fleet feet carry you quickly and stealthily through your native forests. And the one I'm going to be, the Drow Elf. While the Drow are hated and feared among the surface dwellers, individual Drow are free to choose their own path, or so the demon goddess Lolth would have them believe. As a Drow, on the surface, you are a rare and elusive creature, and none but you can decide whether you will find your own way or walk the twisting webs of Lolth's will. And the reason I'm going with a drow, is because they have quite good bonuses. I mean, it's dexterity and charisma, which aren't exactly applicable to a paladin, but even still, it's also the fact they have an immunity to sleep. Their racial bonus is 3 things, which is Search, Fairy, Fire, and Darkness. I think the only other race to have 3 racial bonuses are the Tieflings, and that's like Hellfire, or Hellish Resistance, Hellish Fury, and something else. No, it's Hellish Rebuke, and Darkness. So they also use Darkness. And their proficiencies are Rapiers, Short Swords, and Light Crossbows, so they're quite good. And now we have the background, which is sort of like the backstory, I guess. There's the Guild Artisan, or Artisan. You are a member of an artisan's guild, skilled in a particular field, closely associated with other artisans. You are a well-established part of the mercantile world, freed by talent and wealth from the constraints of a feudal social order. You learned your skills as an apprentice to a master artisan under the sponsorship of your guild, until you became a master in your own right. The guild merchant. You belong to a guild of traders, caravan masters and shopkeepers. You earn a living by buying and selling the works of others or the raw materials artisans need to practice their craft. Your guild might be a large merchant consortium or family with interests across the region. Perhaps you transported goods from one place to another by ship, wagon or caravan, or bought them from travelling traders and sold them in your own little shop. In some ways, the travelling merchant's life lends itself to adventure far more than the life of an artisan. There's the hermit. You lived in seclusion, either in a sheltered community such as a monastery or entirely alone, for a formative part of your life. In your time apart from the clamour of society, you found quiet solitude and perhaps some of the answers you were looking for. As you can see, they all have bonuses and, you know, buffs/debuffs. As a knighthood... Oh no, there's the knight. A knighthood is among the lowest noble titles in most societies, but it can be a path to higher status. As an emblem of chivalry and the ideals of courtly love, you might include among your equipment a banner or other token from a noble lord or lady to whom you have given your heart in a chaste sort of devotion. So we get 25 gold, 1 to strength and 1 to physical damage. There's the noble. You understand wealth, power and privilege. You carry a noble title and your family owns land, collects taxes and wields significant political influence. You might be a pampered aristocrat, unfamiliar with work or discomfort, a former merchant just elevated to the nobility, or a disinherited scoundrel with a disproportionate sense of entitlement. You could be an honest, hard-working landowner who cares deeply about the people who live and work on your land, keenly aware of your responsibility to them. The Outlander. You grew up in the wilds, far from civilization and the comforts of town and technology. You've witnessed the migration of herds larger than forests, survived weather more extreme than any city dweller could comprehend, and enjoyed the solitude of being the only thinking creature for miles in any direction. The wilds are in your blood, whether you were a nomad, an explorer, a recluse, a hunter-gatherer, or even a marauder. Even in places where you don't know the specific features of the terrain, you know the ways of the wild. There's the pirate. You spent your youth under the sway of a dread pirate, a ruthless cutthroat who taught you how to survive in a world of sharks and savages. You've indulged in larceny on the high seas and sent more than one deserving soul to a briny grave. Fear and bloodshed are no strangers to you, and you've garnered a somewhat unsavoury reputation in many a part town. Sage. You spent years learning the lore of the multiverse. You've scoured manuscripts, studied scrolls, and listened to the greatest experts on the subjects that interest you. Your efforts have made you a master in your field of study. The Sailor. You sailed on a sea-going vessel for years. In that time you faced down mighty storms, monsters of the deep, and those who wanted to sink your craft to the bottomless depths. Your first love is the distant line of the horizon, but the time has come to try your hand at something new. Soldier. Ooh. War has been your life for as long as you care to remember. You trained as a youth, studied the use of weapons and armor, learned basic survival techniques including how to stay alive on the battlefield. You might have been part of a standing national army or a mercenary company, or perhaps a member of a local militia who rose to prominence during a recent war. Spy. Although your capabilities are not much different from those of a burglar or smuggler, you learned and practiced them in a very different context, as an espionage agent. You might have been an officially sanctioned agent of the Crown, or perhaps you sold the secrets you uncovered to the highest bidder. Urchin. You grew up on the streets alone, orphaned and poor. You had no one to watch over you or to provide for you, so you learned to provide for yourself. You fought fiercely over food and kept a constant watch out for other desperate souls who might steal from you. You slept on rooftops and in alleyways, exposed to the elements, and endured sickness without the advantage of medicine or a place to recuperate? I don't know how you actually pronounce that. Either way, you've survived despite all odds, and did so through cunning, strength, speed, and awesome combination of each. Acolyte. You have spent your life in the service of a temple to a specific god or pantheon of gods. You act as an intermediary between the realm of the holy and the mortal world, performing sacred rites and offering sacrifices in order to conduct worshippers into the presence of